Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the Gentleman's Hour, episode uno, episode 1. Thank you so much for tuning in to us. We appreciate it so much. It's been a long time coming. By the way, I am Joshua Fers, and this, of course, the gentleman of violence himself, Tom Shoaff. Mr. Tom, how are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderfully, Josh. How are you, my friend?
Hey man, I'm doing swell. Let's just briefly, before we kind of go into our little diatribes and shenanigans and whatnot, let's kind of talk about, maybe briefly, we got in touch. We've been kind of buddies for a while, and we've chit-chatted, and maybe let's kind of help people figure out, what are we doing? Why are we here? Well, that's the age-old question.
That's a beautiful question to ask. And I think the best way that we could describe it or analyze it is exactly what you said, man. We've been friends for a while. We've been talking for a long time. We're really into this fight scene and scenario. And we figured, why not get two personable gentlemen together and have a conversation, have a drink, and discuss what we got coming up in the fight community this coming week. So that's what we're doing. That's why we're here. And that's what you get to look forward to, ladies and gentlemen.
100%. And I tell you what, I'm pumped. I know me and Tom, this is all we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Came together really quickly, but I am truthfully excited, for what we have coming up in the future. We're going to be doing live fight casts. We're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. We'll have guests on from time to time. And then you'll just kind of get to hear the, crazy opinions, and who knows what the hell we're going to get into.
I mean, who knows, like you said, we're just gonna talk and ramble on, and hopefully everybody enjoys it.
Now, I'll tell you what I enjoy, and that's a nice tall glass.
Ooh, yeah. It's not
of alcohol. And what we're going to do, since this is the first show, and maybe we might even make this kind of a routine kind of thing.
I'm with it.
I'm going to pop this open.
Pop it. What are you drinking?
I am drinking Little Kings. It is a cream ale.
I remember you telling me about that.
It's very delicious. We're gonna get a nice little nice pour sound in there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Nice. And
you hear my dogs going crazy right now?
I hear them. That's all right.
All right, as long as you don't mind, I don't mind. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're having drinks, we're having conversations, and that's what we're doing in the Gentleman's Hour. For those of you who do know, my name is Tom Shoaff. I fight for the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships. I've also had a fairly extensive MMA career, and I just genuinely like to hear the sound of my voice. So talking is something that I'm especially good at. And then, of course, you guys know Josh from his writing and reporting, all of the journalism stuff that he's been doing. And, well, you heard the fizzle in the ear. We like our drinks. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to sit down and have a drink, and we're going to talk some nonsense about these fight cards we got coming up. So I'm going to send that over to you now, Josh.
Cheers to you, my friend.
Cheers, buddy.
Wow. Well, I figured the first thing, it's near and dear to both our hearts for different reasons. I think we want to jump right into some BKFC stuff.
Perfect.
Obviously, the big press conference for Knucklemania 3. I cannot believe Knucklemania 3. I couldn't believe when Knucklemania 1 happened and how far the promotion and the sport in general has progressed. I mean, you've been there since the beginning, so like you've seen this stuff progress all the way. Here we are, Knucklemania 3. It's what did we just have? They just had their 50th event total, because they kind of had like some weird, like some fight night stuff in between there and some stuff like that. So
Knucklemania, they've had a handful of fight nights, and I think that card 35 is coming up. February.
Yep. No, 35 is the Myrtle Beach. That's this weekend.
Oh,
35 is the Myrtle Beach card. So,
yeah.
but let's touch on this crazy ass press conference. So it actually made it to TMZ. I mean, like mainstream press is covering this thing. Of course, Lorenzo Hunt, Mike Richmond, of course, Lorenzo Hunt, double champ, and Mike Richmond, who is, yeah, 4-0 at this point. He's now the interim champ, and it's a lot of people have been talking about this fight for a while. I know Mike Richmond had been calling for it, and here we are. We're weeks away, 4 weeks away. The slap heard around the world. That's very cliche, but let's talk about this. I guess from your perspective, the fighter perspective. How did you take? Maybe even insert yourself into that position.
Lorenzo Hunt is by far the most disrespectful human being when it comes to pre-fight shenanigans that I've ever met in my life. Now, I've met Lorenzo a couple of times. I don't know him personally, but I know him well enough to know in real life he's not that much of an asshole. But he's probably one of the most disrespectful, if not the most disrespectful pre-fight fighters I've ever seen in my life. Between what he did to Joe Riggs and then what he did to Mike Richmond, it's mind-boggling that the higher ups let this guy get within arm's reach of any fighter that he's about to fight. It baffles my mind. Like I said, I think that if I were in that situation and I were in that scenario, the gentleman would not be coming out. There would be a certain level of civil savagery that would need to
more
come
the violent side.
Precisely. I'm finding you in your hotel room, dude. We're gonna talk about this, and we're gonna do more than just talk. That's my personal stance on that scenario and situation. Mike's a respectful guy, and he obviously was not pleased with what happened. He went after him. But I think my biggest question in that whole situation, in that whole scenario, is who are they hiring for their security crew? Because the only reason that fight got broken up was because the security guard fell behind Lorenzo and tripped him. So that's my biggest question from this whole situation. Like, we know Richmond is not going to take that disrespect. We know Lorenzo is going to offer all the disrespect. What I want to know is who's in charge of the security and the hiring, because that security was garbage. It was not good at all.
All right, let's backtrack to the slap itself.
Okay.
And like you said, so the tomato in the face of Joe Riggs, and Lorenzo is no stranger to trash talk and that that showmanship side, right?
Oh, he sells fights. There's no doubt about that. He sells fights. I won't dispute it. I won't disagree with it. I just think that obviously I have a certain portrayal and representation on how I sell my fight. He fills a role and he dives into that portrayal just as well. He just plays the heel.
You're exactly, and that's it, right? You hit that right on the head. He plays that heel role so well. If we're kind of taking a playbook out of pro wrestling, it's he is that existential heel role. Like, he is the bad guy. Right. He's the Iron Sheik. He's the guy that's without a good bad guy, it's hard to cheer for the good guy. Right.
I agree. No, I agree wholeheartedly.
So I guess there's a lot of curiosity that spikes in me, and I can definitely understand. You say your perspective. You come from that respectful kind of non-spoken agreement of how fighters should interact with each other, especially before a fight, right?
So, well, I mean, yes, like to your further, your more important point, yes, I have a different standard on how I approach things. but I think my mentality is just a little bit different on it. And if you'll give me a second, I'll elaborate. So for
Sure.
me personally, like the way I look at it is, we're gonna fight. Like I'm gonna fight you regardless. Like at our date and our weight, we're gonna have that fight. So I don't have to run my mouth. I don't have to talk shit. I don't have to treat this like a high school scenario where I got to get under your skin to get you all riled up so that you'll actually fight. No, it's not the case. You signed a contract. You're going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to do it. That's my personal take on it. But I understand that a lot of people treat this very differently, and they like to get into people's head. They like to get under people's skin. They like to get them emotional because when you get somebody emotional, they're not going to fight very well. I fully understand it. I get it. Just for me personally, like I said, my thought process on it is like I'm here to fight you. Either way, I'm gonna fight you. So I don't have to run the mouth. I don't have to talk all the nonsense. We're here to fight. That's what we signed up to do. So anyway, back to Lorenzo. Like I said, that's the role that he has decided to play. That's his character, and he does it very well.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't know Lorenzo personally. I've been around him several times, and talked to him, had conversations with him several times. So like, I don't, I would never say I know the guy, but I feel like I know enough. And you already said it. Like, he's definitely not like, he's not that person in real life, and I guess that's kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit. But like, super, at least every interaction I've ever had with him, put it to you like that, he's always
Mm-hmm.
been super cool to me. He's always been like super respectful, like,
Mm-hmm.
in in terms of how I've interacted with him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but
Yeah, and that's what I mean by that. Like he's not gonna be he's not just gonna disrespect any random person on the street. He's not just gonna walk down the road and shove a tomato in some random guy's mouth. That's
sure.
not Lorenzo Hunt. He's not that. But if he's signed to fight you and he's contracted to fight you, he's gonna do everything in his power to get under your skin and to make you emotionally compromised to give him an advantage. Um, so yeah, to get back to what we're saying, no, like on a daily basis, no, he's not like that. Lorenzo's a nice guy. He's a good dude. He's not a
Right,
terribly human being to the best of my knowledge. But if
right.
you're contracted to fight him, you're gonna hate that dude. You are not gonna like that guy one bit. I get it. It's just not my style.
And but maybe to his credit, um, he has not, because of what he did, he's now made this fight that much bigger.
Oh yeah.
It's already a big show. It's their big show of the year, right? Or at least it's supposed to be, right? This
Hmm.
is where they put a lot of their, I guess, a lot of their marketing efforts and whatnot into. Um,
Hmm.
he is now, it's now crossed into a more mainstream with like TMZ and ESPN and like a lot of these other places, like really like covering this stuff,
Hmm.
covering that slap. And yeah, somebody might argue with, oh well, kind of makes us look bad, kind of looks us makes us look kind of like WWE
All
ish,
publicity
whatever.
is publicity, my friend.
Exactly. What is it? Yeah, any press is good press, no matter
Right.
what, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that uh, you know, maybe he deserved some credit in terms of, hopefully these guys are making a little more money. Hopefully, maybe Mike Richmond's next fight, because they got so much attention, it's going to raise the stock of both guys, especially if it's a hell of a fight.
I agree with you completely. I think that he did what he needed to do to sell the fight. He got eyes on the show. There's gonna be new viewers. There's gonna be new people involved. Just because TMZ picked it up. I mean, it's not much different than when Luis Palomino called out Mayweather. Is that a
Right.
legitimate call out? And could that be something that would legitimately happen? Not likely. But
Probably
it doesn't
not.
get eyes on the sport. Does it get people looking? And will
Sure.
TMZ pick it up because Floyd Mayweather is such a big name? Absolutely. So like I said, as far as playing the game goes, Lorenzo Hunt's doing it right. And he's always been that showman. He's always been the type of guy to not just come out and fight, but also put on a show. I mean, for his walkouts, he's dancing and jumping over people, and he's got dancers and girls walking out with him and all this other stuff. Like he puts on a show before the show, during the fight. afterwards, he is absolutely a personality. So I agree. I think that hopefully, if this brings more eyes and attention on this, then maybe they can have some bigger paychecks in the future. That'd be real nice.
Real quick before we move on from Lorenzo Hunt, because I didn't know this story. I don't know if everybody else knows this story. You were telling me how Joe Riggs is like a big germaphobe and like there's a whole thing. Like if that whole tomato thing was even deeper.
Yeah. So
tell that story.
So if I understand the story correctly, and I think that I do, but I could be wrong, if I understand the story correctly, not only is Joe Riggs a germaphobe, and for those of you who don't know what that is, he just freaked out by germs. He also has like an innate disgust for tomatoes. So again, if memory serves correctly, for whatever purpose, he grows tomato plants. He has tomato plants that he takes care of because he thinks, and even though I don't like this thing, I should still take care of this thing. They had gotten into it. They had an argument. I want to say while Joe was tending to one of his plants, and that was where this whole thing came from. So not only did Lorenzo take a bite out of a tomato and then shove it into Joe Riggs' mouth. One, he hates tomatoes, and two, he's a germaphobe. So,
Right.
of the disrespectful things that you could do, that was probably right up there with spitting in this man's face. And that's what he did. So, again, bring this thing full circle. When it comes to Lorenzo, he's got a way of getting in people's head and playing the heel and being the bad guy. He's good at it. But I don't think that's him. I don't think that's his personality or who he is on a day-to-day basis.
What do you think Lorenzo Hunt has to do, and what does Mike Richmond have to do to win this fight? To me, I think there is an obvious size difference, and I guess that's also another question: is can Lorenzo Hunt make the 185? Because technically he never has.
Well, that's the big question.
Right? So now
can I make weight? When you weigh in, if I'm fighting for a 205-pound title, I cannot weigh more than 205 pounds. If I'm fighting for the 185-pound world title, I cannot weigh more than 185 pounds. No different than when I fought Luis. I couldn't weigh in at 156. It's not the 156-pound title. It's a 155-pound title. So I weighed in at 155. You don't get a 1-pound allowance. Lorenzo has been the champion at 185. When he fought for the belt, he weighed in at 186. Did make weight for the belt, but they still gave it to him. Then I want to say he defended it against Joe Riggs and missed weight again. So it's one of those things where if Joe won it, then he would have won the title. But if Lorenzo or if Joe lost, then the title was vacant or whatever because of the silly weight discrepancy. Well, now he's fighting again at 185. It's like I don't care that you're the 205-pound champ. You're not defending the 205-pound title. It's the same thing with Luis Palomino and Elvin Brito. Luis kept saying, why wouldn't Elvin take a chance at being the 2-division weight, a champ and fighting for 2 belts? It's like, well, because he's not fighting for 2 belts. You're going up to 165 to fight him. That's a 165 pound fight. That's not a 155 pound fight. Just because Brito wins at 165 doesn't mean that he's now the 155 pound champion.
Is it BKFC's job to enforce that strict guideline? Is it the commission's job to enforce that strict guideline? So he comes in, he's defending the 185-pound title. He's had 2 months to prepare, whatever. He's had 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever camp he's had. He's had sufficient time, right, to get down to that 185 mark.
Yeah, you're a professional. You signed a contract. You're supposed to be.
So he goes in and he weighs in 187. Yeah, I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say he comes in, he weighs 187. whose job is it to say, "Hey, Lorenzo, sorry, pal, you didn't make weight. Now you cannot be champion." Like that's because that's what UFC does. Just for
So,
example, right?
so what I would say is it's probably twofold. And this is an ignorant layman's interpretation on it. I have no connection with any promotion companies or commission, so I genuinely don't know. But if I had to put my best guess on it, I would say it probably comes down to both of them. If you miss weight for a title fight that you've been scheduled for months, um, I think that comes down to the commission because now you've interrupted the entire show, so to speak. Like you missed weight,
Sure.
so now we've got to go through this whole process to make sure that this show is still able to continue on. Especially if you have a habit of it, which Lorenzo does. I think that would come down to commission, whether or not it comes down to suspension, things like that. When it comes in, or in the fight itself, when it comes to the belt, I think that comes down to promotion because uh, the commission company or the commissioners, athletic commissioners really don't have any say when it comes to the belt and who fights for the title. They're not matchmakers. They don't have any rights, so to speak, towards promotion company's title, but a promotion company does. And as their champion, you should be representing this company properly, and you should be doing the right things as champion. So I would say again that it's twofold. If you have a reputation for missing weight, and then I think this is that you should be suspended by the commission. And I think that if you've done this as a champion, you should absolutely be fucking. You should have your title stripped.
What
You
about in
know.
terms of like fines and stuff like that? Who enforces fines?
I think athletic commission enforces fines. I don't think that the promotion company can enforce a fine when it comes
Have
to things
have
like
we ever heard? At least to my knowledge, I've never heard anything official. Now maybe they have, and maybe it's just not been made public. Have you ever heard of you know an actual fine being enforced because somebody missed weight?
no. And well,
And I'm not just picking on
outside,
Lorenzo. And
outside of commission, or I mean outside of the fight being recontracted and you getting money taken from your purse. um I mean that happens all the time. So like in my MMA career, I had a bunch of fights where guys just would cut weight, just wouldn't show up. And and my philosophy on it was, yes, I could cut weight and then agree to fight you at 165 pounds or 170 pounds or whatever, um, and take 30% of your purse, or I could just not fight. So
sure,
that's
and I
always
understand that. I understand that, but I'm just saying, like,
still
have
puts the fight in jeopardy, because you could just easily not take the fight, especially in the MMA game. So it's a little different bare knuckle, um, as far as my contracts are concerned.
but I've
um,
never heard of anybody losing a part of their purse. And like I said, I just want to make it clear, like I'm not picking on Lorenzo because he's not the only one. There have
right, yeah,
been
all the
some
time.
people that like they have grossly missed weight and the fight has just gone on as normal. And it doesn't
Right,
make any sense. And you never hear,
right.
I've never heard, well, so and so missed weight by 7 pounds, eight
Yeah.
pounds, and that's a
Oh
real
yeah,
thing, by the way.
they'll still announce it. I mean, because we've seen this in some of the cards recently, where you'll have one guy coming at like 157 pounds, and somebody comes in at like 143 pounds. It's like you guys didn't even bother trying to cover that number.
Right. But I have never heard of somebody being penalized for missing that much. Like, I've never heard it. And not to say it
So
hasn't happened,
right.
but
So again, I don't know about bare knuckle. I haven't had it happen to me in any bare knuckle fights. All of my opponents that have made weight, it hasn't been a problem. But what I do know for a fact is that in our contracts, if a fighter misses weight in the contract, if me or my opponent misses weight, we have the rights to renegotiate that night for new terms, or just not fight. But again, to get back to where I was going with before that is, um, most guys who are jumping in and filling in a spot and fighting somebody bigger than they are, This is their shot. This is their opportunity. So they'll take the risk. They're like, screw it, 10 pounds ain't no big deal. Whatever. They'll go out there and they'll do it just because they need the money or because they need the fight or the platform or whatever. Um, but again, when you're the champ, like, and when you're fighting the champ, there should be a standard. It should be upheld, and I agree with you. I haven't seen that happen when it comes to bare knuckle. Not to say that it hasn't happened. I
Right.
just genuinely cannot speak of one time where a guy missed weight by X amount of pounds, still fought, but gave up a chunk of his money to fight.
Right, because the one thing that has, I don't know, like, to say it bothers me maybe is a bit of an overstatement. Not so much that it bothers me, but there's definitely a curiosity factor. Say you're watching, and I'm just gonna pick on UFC because that's kind of the bar, right? When it comes to combat sports. So let's just say like UFC, it's no thing to hear so and so's coming out. Joe Rogan says right over the commentary, like, "Hey, so and so missed weight by 2 pounds. He got
Right.
20% of his purse taken." Like, and they talk about it right on the show, right over commentary, right?
Right.
I've never seen that kind of transparency, from I,
If I, yeah, well, I don't think we're gonna get that kind of transparency from the BKFC or
well,
from any
why? Why not?
organization
Why not?
for a while, and the reason being is because they're so new. It's like there's already so much controversy with this sport, and it's bloody and it's barbaric and it does this and it does that, blah blah blah. Um, but now you want to add in the fact that you know Jalen Kleckler killed the guy, and now we've got guys willing to take fights, 10, 15, 20 pounds outside of weight classes. Um, I know for a fact, I won't name names here, but I know for a fact.
Name names, Tom. Name
No,
names.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But uh, I know for a fact that somebody I have cornered fought a fight in which he was 25 pounds lighter than the guy he was fighting. But when he weighed in, he wore a weight belt. We literally put the ankle weights and the wrist weights. We strapped that around his waist so that he was within weight range to have this fight. And it wasn't
Wow.
dumb, and it wasn't because the commit or the promoters talked him into it. It wasn't anything like that. This guy needed the money, he needed the fight, and it was a shot at a big opportunity for him. So it's like, fuck it, I don't care about the weight, I don't care about any of that. I'm gonna take this fight. And he
Well,
took the fight.
let me ask you this. So, and again, not to put you on the spot, but since you brought it up,
Mhm.
um, are you just saying? Are you saying this was something that happened in BKFC, or just in general? Like was it an MMA fight, or like what are we talking here?
This was in the early days of the BKFC.
Okay.
Yeah, it was back in the day. I'll say within the first 5 shows, and yeah,
Okay.
man, like he he had a weight vest on or just around his waist, and again. So to get back to what I was saying, is that this sport's so new and there's so much controversy already wrapped up in this thing that it's like if they start now announcing, oh, this guy's 15 pounds heavier than this guy, or this guy missed weight by this much, and then like he goes out, he puts the smash on somebody that hurts him real bad. That we talked about this earlier. All publicity is good publicity, but that's not necessarily the best to look. You got somebody much bigger, much stronger coming in beating this guy up. And we knew about it coming into this. We've known about it 24 hours. Not the best look.
But
Um, I think the
like
UFC
shouldn't there be like shouldn't there
oh, they
be an
should. I'm not
accountability?
right. Oh, yeah, I'm not saying it's right. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm not saying that, business wise, this is how we do it. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that that's why I think it is the way that it is. And I think that the UFC is so successful, and there's so much, um, they've got such a high standard to reach and to maintain that people expect that. It's like, oh, like these guys are supposed to fight this weight, but this guy missed this, weight, so he's paying this much money. It's like, okay, that's out in the open. Everybody knows about it. But for something that's so new and already so controversial, I don't think that they're as likely to let that information flow free.
So,
Um,
let me
yeah,
say this too. Let me say this too, Tom. How long? And again, let me say this too. I realize UFC and BKFC are apples and oranges. So like I don't want someone to say in the chat, well, they're two different things. UFC has been around for like I'm very fucking aware.
we know.
Right? I'm aware of this. I'm just
Right.
it's just that UFC is just such a common ground. Like I said, the standard bar. It's easy to make those comparisons. So like I get it. It's not apples and oranges. How long does and BKFC, Dave? I'm not picking on you. This is honestly just more like again curiosity factor. We keep saying for 10, when it was BKFC 8 coming up or 10 or 12, it was, well, like whenever there was some little mishap, well, and it's still a new promotion. Okay, you're right. Still a new promotion. We're 50 shows in. How much longer do they get when you start a new job, you're going to mess up. Oh, you're the new guy. It's all right. You're the new guy, right? You've been there 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You don't get that same, privilege of, the allotment for being the new guy. You're not the new guy anymore. So if you keep messing up and doing things, you don't get that forgiveness, right? So at 50 shows in, when just when these little things happen, when someone misses weight by 7 pounds, and I know that's not Dave doing that or BKFC doing that, but it happened on their show. Hence, there has to be some type of explanation, accountability, something. There has to be something.
For sure. Accountability for sure. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's
like, how many shows does it need to happen before we can say, well, you know what? This is like show 60. This definitely shouldn't be happening.
I agree. I think they are making progress, man. I think they are making steps. And again, I don't want this to like turn into a BKFC bashing, because it's
of course not.
Put on shows.
Of course not.
I mean, I fight for the company. They put on great performances. They put on great shows, and a lot of fighters love fighting for them. But there are flaws. There are errors, and I think that they have gotten better about a lot of these things. In the past, we would see fighters go down and still take shots. We would see. I think great example is Helen Peralta versus Christina Faria. Like she's down, both hands down, both knees down, taking shots.
Yeah.
Houston Alexander, when he made his debut,
right,
he knocked that guy unconscious and then followed him down. So it's like there are plenty of examples where guys have made mistakes, and it's happened show after show, and then the team has gotten on them and been like, look, you guys can't do this anymore. Like you can't do it. And as those conversations have happened, those incidents have been less likely.
Hey.
I think that's what needs to happen with these guys, with the weight stuff and with some of the other shenanigans that goes on. But I think it has to come down from Dave and from the higher ups. When they do their pre-fight meeting and stuff like that, like, look, this shit won't be tolerated. Like in the past, Dave used to do his pre-fight meeting, and he would tell you, we don't care if you win, we don't care if you lose, we care if you fight. Come out here and fight, and we'll bring you back, and we'll pay you. And then I think it was BKFC. I don't know, maybe it was 3. It was when Rusty Crowder fought Reggie Barnett, and Rusty ran the whole time. And it wasn't because he was scared. Well, it was probably a little bit of fear in him, but it's just he was clearly outclassed. He was out talented, and Dave had no issue running in the ring after that and being like, "We're not paying him. He's not getting his money because that's how we do it here." It's like, okay, if you're gonna not pay, if you're gonna come in and make a scene about not paying somebody because they were outclassed, come in and make a scene about not paying somebody that can't fucking make weight. You know, like if you're gonna make an example, make the right example. And I think that's what it comes down to. And I think once they start taking the responsibility needed as managerial persona, then the company will start running more smoothly. And like I said, you can see that in different aspects. Like the matchmaking's getting better, the production value of the shows are getting better.
For sure.
The cards as a whole are getting better. You know,
sure.
So like they are improving, they are getting better. And when things are going really well, it's really easy to find that one thing that just doesn't work out so well or isn't perfect for us to just talk nonsense about it. I completely agree. All that said, though, there definitely comes a point in time where it's like, look, you've been working this job for 5 years. You shouldn't be making the same mistakes as the year one guy. You shouldn't be doing that. That should be a thing.
Right. And well, I'm just saying, like, and that's my point, right? Like, I'm not trying to bash BKFC. It's just more of, you know, I love the product, you know, like, my God, I literally have spent years covering the product and
I'm with you. I love what they offer.
Right. It's not a bad, it's just more of like a, hey, these are some things I notice as a consumer of your product.
Right.
And I know other people have mentioned it too. You go into the comments section. I'm not saying anything that's, you know, that's a far-fetched. A lot of people have the same questions.
For sure.
Right? A lot of people have the same questions. I'm just maybe it's a matter of some of this stuff could be if you're like, maybe like you're too close to the situation, right? Maybe like,
oh yeah, you can't see the forest through the trees.
Right. That, or like, you know, I am sure Dave has 8 gazillion fucking things. Nate has 8 gazillion fucking things that they're going on, you know, that's going on. But maybe there should be a guy. Maybe they should just have a fucking guy that's like a, you know, like a fighter liaison person when it comes to the events and say, hey, are you fucking on weight? I don't know if there is that guy already. I have no clue.
I think that's what Kevin Smith does. I think Kevin
is that what kind of what he does? Like, hey, are you on weight? Because hey, pal, we're weighing in 12 hours. Are you on weight?
I'm pretty sure that's what Kevin does. It's his job to kind of make sure fighters are where they're supposed to be, get to saunas and get to different workout places and stuff like that. I could be wrong. I could be making shit up. You know, I mean, I did have a glass of whiskey. You know, so that could be a thing. But I think that's what Kevin does.
Okay.
But right. I agree with you. Fair. I think that there should absolutely be somebody who's got I mean, part of me is like, we're adults and we're professionals. Why do I need another grown man standing over my shoulder making sure I'm doing my fucking job? And then the other part of me is like, well, not everybody who does this is an adult. And not everybody who is a professional fighter actually acts like a professional.
Right.
So as unfortunate as it is, sometimes we need these people here standing over you, making sure you're doing the things that you need to be doing or not doing the things you shouldn't be doing because you don't have any self-control. As unfortunate as it is, those people exist in this sport and in this profession. But I don't think that they should be necessary if you call yourself a professional. Again, personal opinion.
100%. And I guess let's kind of move along from that and just kind of briefly touch. There's a couple debuts on the card as well, and we're also going to talk about the Myrtle Beach card as well too. Like I said, we're also going to be doing the live, whatever you want to call it, fight companion,
fight cast, fight companion, whatever
you want to call it. We're
talking shit.
Yeah, we're gonna be live. It's gonna be just completely chill, not a real crazy format. Just kind of, you know, dudes night, just kind of chilling, watching the fight, hanging out, having a couple drinks, talking some shit. Who knows?
And that's the Beach card this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. So be ready for that.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll definitely have more details on that. By the way, we have our Facebook page official. definitely our YouTube, because you'll be watching it on this, of course. So we got the YouTube, we got the Facebook, the Gentleman's Hour. So just search that, and we'll put links. I'll have links all in the post. So when whatever you're watching this on, Facebook, YouTube, I'll have links to all that. So do not worry, because I know you're worried, Tom, but don't worry.
I was about to have a heart attack. Not gonna lie, I was looking to make sure.
And real quick too, let's just touch on, just like I said, very quickly.
Quick,
Of course, they announced Austin Trout, Diego Sanchez. Interesting fight. Interesting fight. A lot of people, again, a lot of people in the comment section on social media, they're of the opinion of, Diego Sanchez, his last couple fights in UFC, he didn't look so hot. And then of course he had like some weird, I know he was having like some weird personal drama, and there was a lot of weird stuff going on, and a lot of people are throwing around the CTE kind of term here, and I don't know.
I mean, that kick that BJ Penn landed on him sent him into the next fucking realm. But to that fight specifically, Austin Trout is I want to say a 2-time WBO champion. Something like 34-5, or I could be
36-5.
Yeah, 36-5. So like stellar boxer, absolutely fantastic when it comes to boxing. And probably in the prime of his life right now. He's right about 37, 38. So he's probably peak manly physical condition. That being said, this isn't a fucking boxing match. And we have seen what happens when a mediocre MMA fighter goes up against a top quality boxer. I've got the poster on my wall right there. Paulie Malignaggi versus Artem Lobov.
Yep.
Artem's a 500 fighter. His MMA record is about as impressive as my bare knuckle record, and he beat Paulie Malignaggi because it's just a different sport, it's a different game. And if anybody remembers anything about Diego Sanchez, he had the nickname the Nightmare for a reason. The guy's a nightmare, and if you let him fight his fight and you let him make it ugly and turn it into a dog fight when you're coming from a no holding, no grabbing, no clinching in any way, shape, or form fight that you haven't done in years, it's going to be a very difficult fight for you. So on paper, does it appear like a mismatch? Absolutely. But this will be a very tough fight for Austin Trout. I genuinely feel that. Regardless of Diego's mental stability, you're in a fight with a guy who's proven time and time again that he's there to fight. So that'll be a really fun fight to watch. I'm really excited about that one.
And then real quick too, and again, we will as it gets closer, we'll go through a little more thoroughly the entire card. But I really just kind of wanted to touch on these because they were more of the, I guess, the notable kind of announcements. Greg Hardy versus Josh Watson.
It's hard for me to be excited about Greg Hardy coming to the BKFC. Partially, mainly because I don't know much about his career. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know much about him. I don't know anybody that he's fought. I just know that he's fought in the UFC, but I couldn't name an opponent of his. Not because he hasn't had good opponents, just because I've never watched the guy fight.
You just don't keep up with his career. That's understandable.
Yeah, exactly. That said, he's a great addition. He's coming from the UFC, and if you fought the UFC, you've got to be talented in some way, shape, or form. So he's got that to him. He's coming into an already stacked heavyweight division, which is intimidating to say the least for all the other heavyweights that are out there. I just hope that it's not another flop. It's not another guy that we're expecting grandiose things from coming from the UFC, and then we have dud out of it.
I will say this, like Greg Hardy, I know he had a big problem like gassing out, and he really couldn't wrestle that well, which obviously you don't have to fucking worry about that here, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's the issue here.
um,
But the gas
not that
tank is a problem.
well, right, because it's a different pace, right? That
Right,
pace is instead of going 40 miles an hour for 5 minutes, you're now going 100 miles an hour for 2 minutes.
right, right.
It's an entirely different. I mean, I don't know why the fuck I'm talking about it, like I've done it, but I mean, like that's kind of what I gather, right? Is that a
Yeah,
good analogy?
look
You
at it.
know,
I mean, yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Like, I mean, take an MMA fight versus a bare knuckle fight. An MMA fight's 15 minutes long.
right?
Bare knuckle fight's 10 minutes long.
Yep.
Even if you're just taking those numbers, like if I put you on a treadmill and I tell you to run at 8 miles an hour, chances are you'll run at 8 miles an hour for longer than you would run at 12 miles an hour.
Right. Right.
So yeah, your pace is going to be higher, and you're going to push yourself a little faster because in the long run, you've got less work that you have to do. You've got less work time. So yeah, the pace is going to be completely different. And if he's not ready for that, if he hasn't prepared for that, um, that's something that will have a drastic effect on his ability to fight.
Yep.
That's probably my biggest bit of information that I give anybody coming into this sport. Is there are two things that you have to prepare yourself for. The first thing is that whatever you anticipate or you expect this to be, it's not that. The second you toe that line and you put your hands up and there's a guy a foot and a half away from you with his hands in your face, everything goes out the window that you thought it was going to be. That's completely different. The second thing is the pace. Like you can't come out, you can't spar a 3 minute round. You can't. I mean, you can, but you're not going to get the same work and you're not going to have the same rate of intensity because it's just not the same time frame. You've got more time
Right.
to play and set up and evolve over 3 minutes. Over 2 minutes, you got to get in, get your work done, and get out. So yeah, I think that it'll be an interesting test for him coming into bare knuckle. But again, I can't really say that I'm super excited about it outside of there's just another monster in the heavyweight division.
BKFC 35. Obviously, we're talking about this weekend, this Friday, January 27th.
Yep.
Forgive me if I am mispronouncing this gentleman's name. Slaviski versus Sedeno.
Yeah, Slavsky versus Sedania, whatever. Who knows?
Sedeno.
I
Sedeno.
got it here. It's a 165-pound title eliminator,
Yeah.
and that fight that'll be a fun fight, man. That'll be one of those fights that I might not be giving Sedania as much credit as he may deserve. But that's going to be one of those fights where if Sedania can absorb the damage that Slavsky's going to put out, which if you've watched any of the fights, we know that it comes to Slavsky. If Sedania can absorb and sustain through 2 or 3 rounds, this could very easily be fight of the night, potential fight of the year contender already this early in the year. I will not backtrack on that statement. This could be a very good fight. And like I said, it's a title eliminator. So
Right.
the winner of this, goes up and is looking to fight, Palomino at some point here pretty soon. So and then I want to say they're having a couple title eliminators. So I'm looking at this card here, and we've got uh, I don't know if it's necessarily a title eliminator, but you've got Soto fighting Reed on there at 155 pounds. Bouchard's fighting Teague. Definitely not a title eliminator. I think Bouchard's making his debut, and Teague.
You know what? That's another dude, Soto. I like him a lot, man. Like he's got a lot of personality. He just seems like he has all that other stuff that you can't. I guess maybe you could teach it, but like in terms of just he's got that personality. He's got the charisma. He's got like he can talk, right? He can
Yeah,
talk
I
and
think that's the best way to describe it. He definitely has a personality, and he could absolutely talk his way into certain
a bigger
situations.
fight.
Yeah, in certain situations and scenarios. Won't dispute that in any way, shape, or form. And Tony's a talented guy. He hasn't necessarily had the most quality opponents, but he's gone out and he's performed well each time. I mean, the guy's undefeated, so you can't knock his hustle too much. But yeah, Tony's a good guy. He's a talented kid. And I don't know anything about this Reed character that he's fighting.
Well,
Um,
I know
but
originally it was supposed to be somebody else, and forgive me.
I was looking him up a little bit today, and I think he's a boxer. I want to say he's like 6-0 or 7-0 in boxing, and now he's switching over and making his debut at bare knuckle. Um, so it'll be a good fight for Tony in the sense of like he'll have somebody with some good striking experience who will be able to kind of test him. But this guy's never fought bare knuckle before, so it'll be interesting. It'll be a good fight. But again, to get back to the 55 to 65 pound rankings, we've got this 65-pound eliminator coming up this week. I think we've got another 65-pound eliminator coming up in a couple of weeks. Jake Lindsay is fighting Connor Tierney. That's
Sure.
another big one at 155.
Yep.
And like I
Yep.
said, I want to say on this card and then the next couple cards coming up, we've got another set or series of eliminator fights. So if I had to make
Connor
my bet,
Tierney's another one, man. I think that
super
dude's
tough.
he's gonna be a fucking superstar, man.
I am so excited about Connor Tierney versus Jake Lindsay.
Yeah.
Um, like so excited about that fight. I remember watching Jake make his debut in Wichita, and I went up to him after the fight, and I shook his hand. I was like, bro, I'm like from somebody who's who's been here before, who's now watching somebody who just made their debut, man. Like you weren't a fan, bro. Like that was an awesome fight. You did great. It was beautiful work. And then Jake was like, "Yeah, man, I'm coming for you next." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, you better come back to 165, homie." So like, but moral of the story is like he performs well. He's a
Yeah.
stellar athlete. He's got excellent boxing. He's good at this game.
Yeah.
And then of course Connor Tierney's Connor Tierney. He's a young guy. He's athletic. He's got stellar hands. And he knows how to fight intelligently. I don't want to say that I have done anything more than I've probably done in this sport, but if anybody wrote the game plan on how to beat Joe Elmore, it was me. And I think Connor went in and he watched that footage, he watched that fight, and he performed everything that I performed and more because he stayed away from taking shots and get dropped and things like that. So again, he's a very intelligent fighter and he's got experience for his age. So
Yep.
again, another fight that I'm super excited about and curious to see where that goes at 165. But I don't foresee having the conversation that I had with Luis and talking to him the little bit that I've talked to him since the fight and stuff. I don't see Luis. I don't foresee him trying to keep anything held up. I think the guy's at a point in his career where he knows that his time is coming as far as how much longer he can do this. And, he just started a family, bought a house, did a whole bunch of stuff. So I think he's at a point in his career now where he wants to get as much money as he can while he still has time to fight. And let's be completely honest, there are nobody has the experience that Luis has in bare knuckle or fighting in general that Luis has in either weight class. And there are no real killers in either one of these weight classes that could threaten Luis. To my own horn here, too, I really thought that I was the biggest problem that Luis could have seen coming. I thought that I was going to bring more to the table than anybody else that he had fought. And, he got through me in 3 rounds, so I don't foresee anybody bringing the problems that I would have brought, or that I did bring to him, at 55 or 65. So I don't see his recovery from fights being that difficult. So I think he'll probably, if he keeps winning, I think he'll probably continue to fight 3 or 4 times a year and make his money and, ride off into the sunset with, fucking 15 damn belts because they give you a new one every time you fight.
Luis Palomino, man,
Pound for
he's
pound, that's
definitely
the reason.
yeah, like he's definitely a specimen. I can remember, so I remember when him and Jim Allers fought in Miami, and I remember how at least in the bare knuckle community, how big that fight was, right? Because like they were the two, I guess they were the two big dogs, 155, whatever you want to
Definitely
call it.
the biggest names, that had come over from other sports.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people thought because Jim Ellers had steamrolled through people.
Yeah,
right?
he was kicking people, bro. He was
right. He was fucking
he
just steamrolling people, and
yeah.
a lot of people thought that. I don't think enough people gave Palomino enough chance to win this fight. A lot of people thought, well, no, Allah's just going to steamroll him, right? Just like he's done everybody else. Just like he's done,
Yeah, I
Leonard
definitely
Garcia and
that was talk for sure. Again, I think that anybody who discounts somebody with at that point 40 plus professional fights is silly.
I agree. I agree.
A lot of people were doing that. They weren't really when Palomino came in. I think he fought Valley Flag the first fight that he had, and just smashed him. Just smashed him, and everybody kind of expected that. And then he had who else? He fought somebody else before he fought. I think he fought somebody else before he fought Alex because that fight was the first half of the 155-pound tournament that started in early 2020 that got cut. The B side of it got cut because of COVID, and I know that because
he had fought Elvin one time prior to that to their second fight, so that's
what it was with Elvin. Or no, so he fought Elvin, and then he fought Ike, and then he fought Jim.
That might have been the order. Yeah,
that was it. I think that was it because I want to say he fought. I want to say he fought Ike for maybe like the tournament, and then he fought Jim for the title. I don't fucking know.
But Jim was definitely for the title. Yeah,
we're getting way off point here.
I know. No, we are getting way off point, but
we'll reel it back. So the point
just to kind of wheel it back. But
I don't foresee Luis fighting any less frequently than he possibly can because he wants to make as much money before he retires. That's my personal opinion.
Fair enough.
And I think that they've got enough going on with these fights and these weight classes because now we've actually the company has actually built enough of a stable of fighters where we could have legitimate top fives with legitimate interims and legitimate title holders if there are multiple situations like we have with Luis and Lorenzo, where they're keeping everything kind of locked in. You got 4 weight classes but 2 champs. That's a problematic scenario when you're trying to pump 50 fights a year.
100%. I guess let's just kind of move along real quick here. Of course, just very briefly, UFC 283, of course, was this weekend, and wow, the fucking fight with with Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill.
I did not see it, but I heard about it, and congratulations to Jamal Hill being the first. I want to say he's like the first guy from the Contender Series to get a world championship. But on top of that, I think that he took the fight on short notice. Didn't even get a full camp. And he fought a legend in Glover Teixeira. Maybe somebody who was potentially past his prime, but still a legend nonetheless. Kudos to him. That's awesome. I heard that there were some other good fights on that card and some good things that happened on that card. But like I said, I didn't really watch it. But to have those notches in your belt, congratulations and kudos to you, Jamal Hill, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, and really just to kind of double down on that, like you said with Glover Teixeira, he's from that that same era, like the Shoguns and the Chuck Liddells and the he's one of the last guys from that era that was still fighting at a very, very high level, right? There's a few of the guys that still fight, but they're not really fighting at high levels anymore. But like he's really that maybe even the last guy from that era.
Man. Honestly, potentially the last guy.
Right. And
one, he was the champion. 2, he's in his 40s.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, he's like second gen as far as like UFC fighters that we remember, and I'll do my best to break this down as chronologically as I can. So, in my opinion, first gen is like Dan Severn, Hoist Gracie, Gary Goodrich,
Ken
uh,
Shamrock.
Ken
Yeah,
Shamrock, guys like that. And then you've got second gen, which is like the Nogueira, Tito, Chuck,
sure,
Couture,
sure.
um, Teixeira, these guys that started it, 10 years ago in their mid 30s. They were
Right.
already past their prime in a sense and started working,
Yep.
in the championships and whatnot. And then you've got third gen, which is like
Yep.
uh, John Jones and, that Rashad Evans, that whole genre, that whole Ultimate Fighter series kind of season or generation, we'll call it. I'd say now we're probably working into our fourth gen as far as how far advanced the sports come along. But yeah, man, Teixeira's one of those guys where he's been in the game so long and he's been here. He's been in the sport for so long that people don't even look at his record anymore. They just know him. It's like no, like that's
The respect is so
that, yeah,
high.
so high. He's so up.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, people don't care what his record is. They just like, no, that's Glover Teixeira. He's one of the best in the world. Like that's just how people remember him. And,
You could put him on a card and people are going to tune in. They don't care the fact that he's. I don't even know his record off the top of my head, but
But again, it's not important because people know him for what he's done in the sport and what he's done for the sport.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would agree with you. I would say that as far as that generation of guys, he's probably one of the last, if not the last. Like everybody else in there is, they're all gone. Honestly and truly, like all of them, they're all gone. So.
Real quick too. Of course, this is a lot of people have already kind of dissected this and talked about it, but we haven't. Well, at least on here.
Not on here.
Not on here. Francis Ngannou, obviously he's gone from the UFC. Everybody knows that by now. If if you're in the combat sports at all, you know that he's gone. Dana White kind of gave his version of, well, as a it was a money thing. We offered him X amount of dollars. He didn't want to take it, blah, blah, blah. Kind of made it seem like he didn't want to fight John Jones or whatever it was. Whatever.
I think they got outbid.
Well, and
take on it.
Francis kind of released some statements saying that no, well, I wanted part of my contract was, I wanted to have health insurance for fighters and more this and more that and more this and more that. And don't get me wrong, the idea is extremely novel and respectable, and of course, like, would love to see like fighters get more taken care of, especially if you're that full-time guy. Like you spent X amount of hours.
You're the fucking champ. Make people be the champ. Like,
right.
I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
No, but so and I hear what you're saying, but like everything, it's completely novel, right? I love the idea. Here's the reality. You're asking for things that you're not going to fucking get. If he went into this contract situation seriously thinking about, I'm going to go in here and get insurance for all fighters or else I'm not fighting. Like, okay, it's novel. Sure.
Was it for all fighters or was it just for him? I thought
no. It was for all. This is what he says.
Okay.
The UFC side or Dana White hasn't confirmed that, but this is what he says. He's like, I want better insurance for all fighters. I just basically more benefits and such for fighters. Like I said, it's a great idea on paper.
There's sponsors on the shorts.
Yep, I think sponsors was another thing, right? Which
health insurance, and there was something else. I can't remember what it was.
Right, but I guess my point is, you're going in there and you're saying, this is what I want. it's almost like he's not stupid.
Self-sabotage. Like he
You're like
intentionally sabotaged it.
right. Like
Yeah.
you know Dana's not going to be like, you know what, Francis, I want you so bad. I want to keep you so bad under contract. Let's do it. Let's give every fighter fucking health insurance.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
So if my brain's put this together properly, the assumption that I would make is that you're absolutely correct. Francis is not a stupid guy. He's not a dumb person in any way, shape, or form. I would also say that he's fully aware that if he asks in his contract for better insurance for all the fighters, that chances are he's not going to get it. I also think he's smart enough to know how this scenario plays out in the long run. And Francis is not a selfish human being, from what I could gather. I've literally never met the guy. I've only seen like videos on the internet. But he seems like a pretty genuine human being. He seems like a pretty good human being. So if I had to pin it down to something, I would say one, he probably asked for things so outlandish and so outrageous, knowing that they would deny him for two reasons. The first reason would be that gets him out of his contract. We can't come to terms. That's fine. We can renegotiate, and I can go get sponsors at other places. You know that will. I mean, remember Demetrius Johnson when he had Xbox One, and they were paying him $500,000 a fight to walk out with an Xbox One T-shirt.
Right.
Like Francis Ngannou made $600,000 in his last fight.
Right.
So it's like if you could go get a couple sponsors like that in a smaller organization, he's already making more money. On top of that, now he's set a precedent that he expects certain things when he's coming to your company, and if you don't present that, he'll fucking leave.
Right.
And thirdly, now he's let all the other fighters know that he's put this bug in their ear as the champion, and they told him to get fucked. So now all the other fighters can now come together, and now it's kind of like it's not. Now they can all come together and they can say, "Look, like you would do it for one guy, but if we all refuse to fight or we all refuse to renew contracts, now you've got to change your business model. Now you've got to change how you're going to work with fighters moving forward." And Francis may not have had that intention or had that goal to martyr himself for the further generations of fighters. But now that he's done that, he's set a precedent for fighters that we can walk away and it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. You can say what you feel you're worth, and you can stand by that, and somebody will give you an offer, even if it's not the company you wanted. I mean, less than 3 hours after that announcement was made, every major organization in the world reached out to Francis. And it wasn't just fight companies; it was sponsors, and it was
Right.
anybody and everybody who could get their hands on him, who could get a little piece of what he's offering, so that he can get the notoriety that he has to offer. And that's what I think that he's done. Is I think that he's got good people around him, and he's got a good group of people who've understood. Like, look, like you're not going to get this from them, but that's fine because you set this precedent. You go out, and you ask for it, and they let you go. Now they're the asshole. They're the bad guy. But now everybody knows what you'll work for, and on top of that, anybody who wants to go work for them in the future has to renegotiate terms because you set this precedent.
Well, devil's advocate here. Devil's advocate here. Let's just say he is in talks with PFL. I don't know. Let's say he's in talks with PFL. We're gonna know real quick if that whole fucking insurance thing was just a scapegoat to get out of his contract.
And
or
again,
is he gonna go to PFL and say, "Hey, this is part of my contract"?
But again, that's if it was for all fighters. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I don't know the details. What I read on the little meme that I had read was there was like three things. One of them was insurance. He wanted better health insurance. I didn't know if it was for all fighters, but better health insurance. The other one was sponsored. Just those two things. Let's say it wasn't better health insurance um, for all fighters. Let's just say he wanted all around health insurance because a lot of people don't know this. We're not insured by the promotion company throughout the year. We're only insured the night of the fight. So, like, I fly down for the show and we fight on Saturday. I got weigh-ins on Friday and I fucking break my toe Friday morning. I don't get paid. I don't get to fight, and I'm not covered on their insurance because it's not the night of the fight. So if he was just saying, "Look, I want health insurance. I just want month-to-month general health insurance," so we're like, I'm feeling sick. I could go to the doctor. It's covered and taken care of. If that's all he was asking for, and that's what he's given in this new contract, then precedent still stands. Everything still stays stable. That being
So
said,
so
I
so
don't know
just
if he wanted,
well,
you
so
know,
just to throw
insurance
this in
from
there, just to throw this in there, um, before we get too far from it. So I'm looking at because he all this stuff got revealed on his interview with Era Hawani.
okay,
So the insurance thing is for everybody because he
okay,
says this is a quote from him. At this point, health insurance for me is not a problem. Um, but how about the guys at the bottom making 10-10?
yeah,
10-10, 5-5, 12-12, whatever, like they can't really afford it.
right,
So it's
right.
actually he's definitely trying he was
So he's
trying to
definitely
do
making more fighters.
something right.
Well, so okay, this is my only devil's advocate. Give me one second. I'm gonna close this door. So this is
Good.
my only devil's advocate to this little argument situation. Um, and again, this could be another thing that I'm completely wrong on, but we're in conversation, so let's go with it. If I recall correctly, the PFL pays a monthly salary. They're one of the few organizations that do it, but they do it for the purposes so that you can focus on training and not have to have a job and go out and do all this other stuff. Um, but they pay a monthly salary. So if they're paying a monthly salary to their fighters, I don't think it would be unheard of or unreasonable for them to have a decent insurance plan for their fighters. So
But
that is something
doesn't
that
that change the entire business model? Because like as fighters, you guys are independent contractors, correct?
yeah,
So if you get insurance, doesn't like and I'm no expert at this at all. So if somebody this is just I'm just some asshole asking a bunch of questions because I don't know, right? So like at that point, if you start offering health insurance to your fighters, does that change the dynamic and the relationship between employer and employee? Like, are you
it
no longer
really,
and
and the way I look at it is very similar to like, so it's called PFL, Professional Fighters League. Look at any other FL that we have, or the NBA, the NFL, the soccer companies, like the NHL, all of them. They're all employed by their team, which is employed by the NHL, which is covered under a certain amount of guidelines and a certain amount of standards. And all those NFL players and NHL players all have insurance, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. It all, comes down into their contract and they're considered an employee. Are they considered 1099s? I don't know. Are they considered independent contractors? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that there are obviously organizations and sports leagues that do this. It's already a thing. It's already been established. We just, and by we, I mean the fight community, decides not to because it's easier on a tax end to just have a bunch of independent contractors that you dump a few $1,000s to every now and again versus having a year in and year out salaried employee. It's a very different tax bracket, a very different tax game that has to be played on
right,
that aspect. And
right.
there are, like I said, as far as I know, and to the best of my understanding, the PFL does that. they pull these guys in and say, no, you're an employee, you work for us, we're paying you this, plus your fight money, and you get insurance, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. It's feasible, it's doable, but we know that companies like the UFC or companies like fight companies, it's never been about the fighters. It's never been about the athletes. It's always been about the promotion companies. That's the way it's always been from day one. So for us to expect anything different when we are just the chattel is silly, in my opinion. And that's why I think Francis was smart in his decision, because he's quite literally come from a destitute, impoverished, damn near slavish community, and he knows how this can lead in the long run, and he knows where it goes, and he can just easily put his foot down and say, "No, I'm not doing that." And he can make change for a lot of people. Like I said, do I think he intentionally martyred himself for the rest of us? No. But do I think he's smart enough with his life and the experience behind him to understand that changes can be made? They're just choosing not to. Yes.
Okay. I is there still a BKFC pension?